of the way.
Supposed to help someone without having money.
No. I'm gonna
No,
rebut that.
no, no, James, you can't do that.
Oh,
You
I'm
gotta,
sorry.
you gotta wait.
No,
It's
I'm
a
sorry. Go
debate.
ahead.
It's a debate, not a conversation.
Yep.
How do you expect a church to pour into the community if it doesn't have the means to store what is necessary for the community to have? So when we look at the old school church, everyone paid into the church, right? So that the church could have the means to help the less fortunate. I think what you're speaking about is the way that pastors have profited off of uh, off of the church's income. So all you see is what the pastor have. You're no longer seeing the resources that are being given out to the people. I think as a society, we've gotten into this group me blame culture, where if we don't have, we think that if someone else has, it's a problem. But we don't look at the outreach programs, the drug rehabilitation centers that these Catholic churches have. We don't look at the vision programs that they have for people coming in, literally in the vans to pick people up who don't have vehicles so that they can come into the church as well and hear the word. When we look at ministry, and you're talking to someone who brother was a pastor, and a minister, 9 generations of ministry. So the people see it from one side because they lack the information or knowledge to know what goes on the other side. There are times when pastors will take out of their own pockets and pour into the people, and people are not tithing in the church for them to be able to have that. So although you may have a select conglomerate of pastors who have multimillionaires making their investments, there are a lot of people who have not but, everyday hardworking people giving 20 and 30 bucks, and that's all they have to help people. So I think when you blend politics or you blend social ills with the ministry, it messes it up. Because as much as we want to say that the church is wrong for having money, how can they really help people if they don't collect money? Um, you got to understand it is the collection that gives them the means to pool their resources to help others. It's not like the federal government who has an endless budget of money or endless slew of ways to collect money to help people. I think we got a real problem when we mix welfare with
So
church.
we have some good questions in the comments.
Yeah.
TD said, I point to Joel Osteen and his mega church. During Hurricane Ian, he refused to open his church as a shelter. Nipa said, how do you
Absolutely.
feel about Creflo Dollar and TD Jakes?
I believe there are certain ministries. Those ministries are called profit ministries.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
For
But you
profit.
also have to understand that those people wrote books that sold very well. They have engagements, speaking engagements that pay them very well. The money does not come from the church. It comes from the items they sell because they have a platform. So it's like we're streamers, and say we have a T-shirt line, or we have a cup line, or whatever other lines we have. Those things will help funnel and pay for us to be able to spend the time with you for free, right? Or the gifts that we get here on the app. It's pretty much the same way. A lot of those, you got to understand, if you look at TD Jakes' his messages that he has recorded for people, his podcast income. You look at his book income and his speaking engagement income outside of what he collects in the church, he's already a millionaire. Joel Osteen is the same way. Creflo Dollar was the same way. So a lot of the money that you're eyeing is money that they've earned by independent living outside of what their connection to the church is, not from the church. From the church, they get a flat salary. A board of trustees are the ones with the money, and they allocate it accordingly. Every one of those churches has a board of trustees, and the board of trustees pay him as if he's the CEO, and then everyone else is paid. Even the greeters get paid, even the musicians in the church get paid. So everyone gets paid from the church. But we're not looking at the musicians' money. We're not looking at the armor bearers' money. We're not looking at the greeters who get paid at the church, or the receptionists that get paid from the church. When you look at mega church ministries, look how many people are on the payroll, deduct what you think they collect in the pulpit, and then you will see that they are feeding families and they are nurturing homes. It's not always about them. You got to separate the person and their personal income from what they earn from the church. That's just a flat fee they get. So say TD Jakes, I think his net income was 3.5 mil from the church, but he made $10 million in private sales and speaking engagements and events. So you gotta understand, because of the platform they have, their money is way more scrutinized than it would otherwise be so. But then you also have to look at how many people are employed and actively employed by the church and how that money is broken down. There literally is a board of trustees that will not allow them to have personal gain off those monies. That should be the caveat for you, is that there are board of trustees, just like, we have Congress, right? They have a board of trustees that allocate how the funds go. That's it. That's all I say.
Yes, James.
Am I allowed to butt in now?
Yes, sir.
So no, I'm not gonna lie, changed a lot of what I agree with 99.9% of what she said. The way I look at it and reading these comments here, people are like, oh, he sold his soul. Oh, they're preying on people. At the end of the day, they're making money off what they do. You don't have to spend $1 on them. I don't. That's your prerogative. At the end of the day, it's them making $1 like anybody else. It's it's a supply and demand economy. So if they make money for whatever it is they do, their livelihood, you can debate whether it's moral or not. That's irrelevant. At the end of the day, what they do is supply and demand. If somebody wants to spend money on a ticket to go see them, buy their book, see them speak, good for them. There's nothing wrong with that. And the mega churches they're the high end of the example, because like she said, it's the small community churches that do the work as well. I mean, it's the soup kitchens down the street, the blankets. I'm not talking about getting money out of religion. That's ridiculous. It's the 1% visible you see on that TV, on the mega churches that jade, it makes people jaded towards the whole religion as a whole. At the end of the day, if you have a good community church that does well for you, I'm all about it. Practice whatever.
So I have a question related to this question. And by the way, this is how we do it at the Great Debate. Welcome everybody to the Great Debate. We start with original topic, as Ange said, and then we just jump around until she tells us to stop, because her 15 minutes is over. Hi, Playmaker. Welcome in, everybody. So here's my question. Is it ungodly to be rich and or successful? Like when we see a church, the mega churches and stuff, is that considered ungodly by religious terms, by personal terms? Do we associate that with evil? How do you guys answer that?
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's opinion based. So let's take the Church of Christ in California. There's 3 pastors there, if I'm not mistaken, last I read about it. They make anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 a year.
Go Team Lotus, go.
However, what Zen Barbie said resonates with the way that church runs. There is a board. They get a paycheck.
Team Lotus.
They give out to their community, like
Team
she
Lotus.
said. They have food banks. They have to prep for those food banks. They have to pay for an area for that food to be stored. There is money that is paid into the church, the dwelling, the gas, the heat, everything it takes to just be able to go to church twice a week, 3 times a week. So to say that it's ungodly, I would have to say no. Not that I'm in agreement, but I would have to say no, because God is providing. I mean, do you agree? Does anyone disagree with me? Please.
I think my view is, if you're asking, should they be allowed to succeed, make millions of dollars in a vacuum, the answer is yes. But from a religious standpoint, if they're making that money on the suffering of another, which I'm not saying they're doing, they're not, then that would be a no. So in a vacuum, I think, make as much as you want, as long as you're not doing harm to another. Hey, go get it.
I mean, a pastor's job, Zen, James, Blaque, a pastor's job is just like any of our jobs.
Yep.
They have to get up. They have to go to work. They have work to do. They have deadlines. So shouldn't they be paid for that?
Yeah, I'm trying to make as much as I can every day.
I think that when you look at the grand scheme of the total revenue that a church brings in, for example, T.D. Jakes' church, before he stepped down as pastor, by the way. But T.D. Jakes, his church, when he had it, his church generated $100 million a year. His salary was $3 million a year. So when you look at the 3.5 million for that year, so when you look at the grand scheme of what he earned versus what was brought in, he really made pennies. So I think we get so caught up on the number that we don't look at the percentage. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some nonprofits, and I'm going to tell you why I say that. Salvation Army is another nonprofit. You got to understand, church runs under the C3 status, the 501c3 status, tax exemption. Mm-hmm. Salvation Army is also a nonprofit. Salvation Army brought in $100 million and their CEO made $25 million. But we're not fighting with Salvation Army the way we're fighting against T.D. Jakes. So when you look at it, 25% of 25% of the total income versus 3.5% of the total income, you're looking at two different people. But no one is at the throat of the Salvation Army, although it is found on Christian principles and indoctrinations. You want to know why? Because the CEO of that company or of that nonprofit is not in a pulpit. So we are literally attacking what we think someone should act, how someone should act spiritually. It's not necessarily what they're doing. Right? So we don't like T.D. Jakes because he talks to us and tries to help encourage people, but his house ain't all the way clean. But I've seen, you're talking about the equivalent of like a George Bush having a daughter strung out on drugs, and he has a son who made had an incident or a problem. So we didn't go at George Bush's neck for having, or Jeb Bush's neck for having children who were strung out on drugs, but we're going after T.D. Jakes for why? We got to understand the mental concept of how we process spirituality and how we process faith. We act as if people who are in the pulpit are supposed to be superhuman. They're just human, just like us. They're going to have fallacies and make mistakes. Now, I'm not excusing their behavior because I never will, but we got to think. And when T.D. Jakes' son did that, he had to step down, and now he's no longer the pastor of that church. His daughter is. So I say all that to say this. We have to be mindful of how we judge people and the pedestals we put them on. But yet, like I said, if you look at another nonprofit the same way that pays themselves hefty salaries, the CEOs, founders of those pay themselves really hefty salaries, and then only spend 20 or 30% of their revenue to take care of people, whereas in a church, they get paid a salary, say 30% total for staff, And then 70% goes to help people buy gas, pay the bills, the electricity and stuff like that. So you got to look at income versus outcome versus looking at it as they got a jet or they got a plane or they got something else. They just got richer benefactors than most people. And you can't hate the game.
Then quick question before James intersects. Do you believe that the public has access to their annual budget? I mean, some churches do that. Is that what that's taking?
I'm sorry, you say what? You kind of broke up.
So sorry. Does the public have access to their budget? Like, can a parishioner say, I'm a member of this church?
Absolutely. Any organization that has 501c3 has to show their earnings. So there is an annual budget in their office. So you can look at what they got versus what they gave out. And that's in the office, in the duty office. There always has to be record for that. And it's available to the public. Even if politicians have to show what they earn or assistance or aids to federal government houses, everybody's is out there for you to see. Absolutely.
Go ahead, James. We got 3 minutes.
So I'm gonna say I'm actually a little ignorant. I recognize the name like Joel Osteen. I recognize this Crespo Dollar, but the name she's saying, this Jakes, I have no idea who. Yeah, I don't know who that is. So is that like the same concept, like a mega preacher?
He's big like Joel Osteen and Creflo. Okay. He's a big name. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. So yeah, I definitely don't know anything about that story. I will say something about she's mentioned like nonprofits and all. The thing with nonprofits is people got to realize is to qualify as a nonprofit, you basically have to spend every dollar you get in a fiscal year to qualify for the next year. So, like, I live in Pennsylvania. One of the biggest nonprofits in this state is Penn State University. And the reason they are a nonprofit every year is they pump money into their football stadium, all the stuff that you consider like maybe not as important as a regular, day-to-day operation thing. But to be a nonprofit, you got to spend every dollar and you have to show that you spend it to get to keep your nonprofit status for the next year.
And they do.
So that's part of the quote unquote, big salaries and spending on, toys, for lack of a better word. So that's part of it as well.
And a lot of things that you guys see pastors have are set up under an LLC. So the LLC, as they have a business, and their business buys those expensive things. They personally don't own any of those things, but those are tax protections that are also given to CEOs, CFOs, and executives of companies.
Yeah,
very true.
I'm gonna push back one more concept there. Like, my view is very simple. Like you say, they make all the money and all, and that's great. I mean, I know where every dollar I spend goes. And I think if everybody knew where every dollar that they spent goes, what's to complain about? Nothing to complain about.
Like she said, the budget is available.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like my personal dollar. Like, I can't complain if I put money into that church, which I don't, but if I did, why would I complain about any of it? It's my money.
All right. How do we feel, Ange, about the topic that you brought? Can we get some clapping hand emojis in the comments for Zen, Barbie, and James? Y'all brought it. Damn. I was like,
told you I'm a master.
Thank you, everyone. We have about
we got
20
you up
seconds.
Against Zen. Yeah, we got you up against Zen. So
Zen's awesome, by the way. Holy shit! Like, changing my mind and all.
Zen, let me tell you, every time she graces my room, I'm gonna remind y'all, hit her with a fave. I get my morning knowledge from Zen before I come and deal with you crazy ass people. So y'all for keeping me calm and remembering that y'all are just all idiots, and I gotta be kind and loving like Jesus did to all of you. So
wow,
yeah, that's why you had to get my intro of redo.
Judge not, lest ye be judged.